With the NFL Top 100 kicking off this week, I wanted to take some time to recognize the really underrated players in the NFL that are awesome at what they do. I'm talking top 10 to 15 at their position, but who get pretty much no publicity and no recognition. Sometimes they get paid a lot, like, say, Tyson Campbell getting the bag this week, but oftentimes they get virtually no coverage and no praise, even if they're some of the best players in the NFL. So today, as well as later on this month, I'm going to highlight 5 underrated great defensive players and also 5 underrated great offensive players, and hopefully shine a light on what makes them so good. So without further ado, I'm not going to waste any more of your time. Let's get into number 5. I have been trying to find an excuse to talk about Grover Stewart for years now, so I'm happy I finally have one. This is one of the best nose tackles in the NFL that nobody ever talks about. Whether he's lined up as a true zero, a shade, a 2-eye, a head up 2, even sometimes as a 3 technique, this is somebody who has an absolutely monumental impact on the Colts run defense. If you look at the splits when he was on the field in weeks 1 through 6 last year, as well as weeks 14 through 18, versus the splits in weeks 7 through 13 when he was not on the field, it is outrageous how much worse Indy was at stopping the run without him. When he was out there on the field, Indy was 6th best in the NFL in terms of yards before contact per attempt, which is essentially a measurement of how well they reset the line of scrimmage on run plays and how early they get contact on the running back. And they were also 3rd in the NFL as a team in terms of tackles for no gain or tackles for a loss at 77. That is a huge number. But in the weeks where Grover Stewart was not on the field, that average yards before contact per attempt dropped all the way down to 29th in the league, and they were also 15th in terms of tackles for loss. So they were elite with him on the field, and they were average at best to really below average at worst when he was not there. In terms of his individual production, on top of that, if we take the weeks that he was healthy, he was 2nd amongst all interior defensive linemen in that sample size in tackles for loss. So again, when he was out there, he was top 2 in the entire league in terms of making impact plays against the run. He's not just a 1st and 2nd down player though, even though he is kind of a classic nose tackle. He's also a pretty decent pass rusher for somebody who's in that role. He's not Dexter Lawrence in terms of rushing the passer, because pretty much nobody is, but as far as nose tackles go, he was one of the more productive pass rushers as well from guys who are that typical role and body type of, 325, 330 plus. Again, he's not Dexter Lawrence, but he's well above average in that department, so we'll take it. Overall, this is a huge, literally and figuratively huge impact player for the Colts defense. He is constantly overlooked, but they look a lot better as a team when he's on the field versus when he's not. Hopefully, he gets more respect in 2024. And with that, let's get to number 4 on our list. Ernest Jones IV has quietly emerged as one of the better young defenders on one of the better young defenses in the league. Obviously, Aaron Donald's retirement is going to massively affect the Rams' pass rush, but Ernest Jones, even as an inside linebacker, is good enough to pick up some of that slack. He's one of the better pass rushing inside linebackers in the NFL, and he's somebody who can affect protections by making offensive coordinators and quarterbacks and centers really hesitant to match up running backs against him. If you watch my recent pass protections video where I talked about the most common protection in the NFL, which is 2-3 jet, well, a bunch of teams have different names for it, but let's just call it a half slide where you get a running back blocking a linebacker. That's all well and good, and it's very common for a reason because it's very effective, but if you're doing that against Ernest Jones, you're probably going to pay for it because most running backs cannot handle him in pass pro. And guess what? The Rams knew that too because they sent him on blitzes constantly, knowing that he was probably going to kick whoever's ass was asked to block him. He led all linebackers in pressures last year at 32 with a 19% pass rush win rate, which is absurdly high for a linebacker, and he's certainly a weapon on 3rd down for that reason. But he's not just a weapon as a pass rusher, he can also cover as well. It's not his calling card like, say, Fred Warner, but he can definitely do it. In 2024, I just want him to turn some of these PBUs into interceptions because he will get himself into position. He just doesn't really have great hands. I guess he plays linebacker for a reason. Against the run, he was a very solid player as well, or I would even say more than solid, considering he was 6th amongst all defensive players, like any position in terms of tackles for loss. He was only 1 behind Quinnen Williams and 2 behind Max Crosby, so that is the company he's keeping here in terms of impact plays. So if you wrap all this up into one package, you have an elite pass rushing inside linebacker who's really good at getting in the backfield and disrupting the run as well, and he's pretty solid in coverage. Plus, he's only 24, so it's very possible he gets even better from here. This is a really, really good young linebacker that pretty much nobody talks about, which I get it. He's a 3rd-round pick from 2021, and a lot of people don't watch as many Rams games as I do, so he's not going to get the national media attention, but he should get it this year. This is a very, very good player who's probably going to get paid a lot of money pretty soon here. Speaking of getting paid a lot of money, by the way, that does bring us to the 3rd player on our list who just got a record-breaking deal as a cornerback. Now, before we get to number 3 on our countdown, I do want to thank our sponsor for today, Bear Mattress. I've had my Bear Mattress for many, many months at this point. It is well broken in by now, and I still sleep just as well as the first day I set it up. Delivery was super easy. It just comes in a compact box, and then you open it up on the floor, it unfolds and kind of decompresses into a normal size mattress. I really don't know how the physics work for them to fit something that big into a box that shape, but I'm not going to question whatever witchcraft they use over there. But anyway, somehow that works. Bear does have a sleep quiz, by the way, that you can take to match you to the perfect mattress based on your body type and sleep positioning. And they also have a 120-night sleep trial period so that you can absolutely make sure you love it. I know I love it because I've had mine for probably 2 or 3 times longer than that trial period at this point, and I am still going strong. Bear mattresses are fiberglass free, the shipping is also free, and you get a lifetime warranty to boot. So just check them out at bearmattress.com/Brett. Use promo code Brett, and that will get you 40% off your mattress and $400 in sleep accessories. So again, bearmattress.com/Brett, promo code Brett. You'll get 40% off your mattress and $400 in accessories on top of that. Thank you once again to Bear Mattress for sponsoring today's show and also for making a very comfortable bed. And with all that said, let's finally get to number 3 on our countdown. The new highest paid corner in NFL history is Tyson Campbell down in Jacksonville. And I'll tell you what, the reaction to that deal tells me everything I need to know about how underrated Tyson Campbell is. A lot of people hated this deal for Jacksonville because this is a young corner who has never made a Pro Bowl, never made an All-Pro, and all of a sudden he's getting paid at the top of the market. And believe me, this guy is worth it. If he was on the open market, he would have gotten the exact same number, trust me, because NFL GMs and coaches know how good this kid is. If you go back to 2022, which was his last healthy year, I kind of throw out 2023 personally. He was dealing with hamstring injuries. He was dealing with quad injuries. There was just a lot going on. But if you go back to 2022, he put up elite tape against some really good receivers. He played a lot of off coverage. He played a lot of press man coverage. And I mean a lot of press man coverage. He had over 300 snaps in press man that year. And he held up in both really, really well. When he was in zone coverage out in space, you saw the feet, you saw the hips, you saw the closing speed. I mean, he was really hard to test when he was kind of playing that deep third. Defenses would try to stretch him horizontally and vertically, and he just had such good range that he was really, really hard to test out there. And when he was in press man coverage, he's so fast and so explosive that he played with kind of a rare confidence. Even if you got over the top of him, he knew that he had the makeup speed to still get there. And he was just so aggressive at the catch point because he knew that pretty much nobody could run away from him. It reminded me of a young Jalen Ramsey who was always sitting in the back pocket of receivers, kind of overplaying back shoulder fades, even when he started out kind of playing top down on the route, because he knew that even if you tried to slip past him vertically, you weren't going to get away. So he would overplay those back shoulders, get a ton of PBUs off of it. And that's when you know a corner is really feeling it, right? If they're not panicking and playing way too over the top of a route, and they're just sitting there hip to hip, waiting for the back shoulder, knowing that you still can't beat them deep over the top, there's just nothing you can do at that point. And that's the kind of corner he is. When he is healthy, he is really, really hard to beat vertically because he's so gifted. And when he's in zone, he's a super rangy, instinctive threat as well. I just love Tyson Campbell. I think he's a great corner. He's worth every single penny. And for all of you that are doubting that deal, come back to me in a couple years when the corner market is even bigger than it is right now, and then take a look at that contract. I promise you, it's going to look pretty darn good. Now, moving on to number 2 on our list, we have another DB in Florida who hasn't gotten paid yet, but I can guarantee you when that second contract does come through, it's likely going to break a lot of records. In a world of fairly one-dimensional safeties that can do one thing really well, whether it's play the run or play the deep post or maybe kick down in the slot and handle man coverage duties on slot receivers or tight ends, with all these one-dimensional safeties out there that have one specific role, Javon Holland is one of the rare safeties whose role is just yes. If you want him to play the run from like a 12 to 14 yard shelf because you're in quarters and you're trusting your guy to come downhill and fill that alley with aggression and make the tackle one-on-one, yes, he can do that. If you want to blitz him off the edge like 30 times in one game just because you can and it's fun, yes, you can do that too. If your name is Brian Flores. And he did do that, by the way. Like, that's a real thing. He blitzed him like 30 plus times in one game. It was crazy. If you want him to be in the deep post and kind of be your Earl Thomas for you, he can do that as well. If you want him to play corner and hold up man-to-man outside, or even harder, man-to-man in the slot with a two-way go, he can also do that too. There's a lot of hyper-specialized safeties in the NFL that make a lot of money for their hyper-specialization, but Javon Holland is one of the rare, and I mean rare few, who can specialize in anything. He truly is system proof. And that's why I think when he finally does get paid, just like Antoine Winfield Jr. before him, he's going to get a top of market deal. He probably will be the highest paid safety in the NFL because just like Antoine Winfield Jr., there is not a team that he does not fit. He is excellent at virtually everything. His weaknesses are virtually zero. And even if he's not the most rangy post safety or the most intimidating run defender or even the best blitzer or the best slot defender, even if he isn't top 1 at any of those particular things, he's at least top 5 to 6 in all of them. And that is what makes him so rare. So trust me, Javon Holland, I know he doesn't get the accolades, the Pro Bowls, the All Pros, but he will get paid, and he will get paid a shit ton. That in itself should tell you what the NFL thinks of Javon Holland. I know Miami's got some money issues, so I don't know if it's going to be immediately before camp or maybe if it'll have to stretch into next offseason, but that money is coming and it's very well deserved. Now, we have one more name on this list, and he also happens to be a Miami Dolphin, or at least he was a Miami Dolphin before Minnesota just paid him a truckload of money to come be their new Swiss Army knife. You just knew I could not go this entire episode about underrated defensive players without talking about Andrew Van Ginkel. If you listen to our podcast, the Bootleg Football Podcast, we talk about him a lot. Honestly, we talk about him too much, but I mean, how could we not? He is a really, really damn good football player because just like Javon Holland, he's good at everything. Last season, he was 8th among all edge rushers in the entire league in terms of pass rush win rate. He was 59th in pass rush snaps this year, but was 22nd in pressures. So that's pretty crazy efficiency, especially for a defense that doesn't typically blitz a whole lot, at least compared to the previous Brian Flores iteration when he was in Miami. This was a team that tried to win with 4 or maybe tried to win with 5 if they were calling fire zones in certain situations. But you can't play that style unless you got guys that can hunt. And believe me, Andrew Van Ginkel, he can hunt, okay? He also had 147 coverage snaps as an edge defender, which is a ton. And on those snaps, he got 4 pass breakups, which again, for an edge defender, is a lot. Like he even got one down the boundary, like playing a fade down the boundary, which it's just not often you see a guy his size make a play on the ball deep down the field. He was a great run defender too, whether he was posted up as an edge rusher or sometimes they put him at off-ball linebacker. He got a bunch of tackles for loss that way. So when you look at the whole package, again, you have a top-tier pass rusher in terms of efficiency. You have a guy who, as an edge rusher, you can also drop into coverage and feel good about it because he had twice as many pass breakups as he had first downs given up. and he's also a really darn good run defender. If you're just looking at that fit in Minnesota, I mean, it makes perfect sense. Minnesota's defense is really weird. This is a team that both led the NFL in rushing 6+ players because they played cover 0 literally twice as much as they played cover 1. Wrap your head around that statistic if you can. Fucking wild to me. But they also led the league at dropping 8 into coverage and only rushing 3. You can only play this super weird, crazy style, and I really can't describe it as anything other than that, if you have edge rushers that can both cover and rush. You need guys that can do both so the defenses don't know if you're dropping 8 or bringing the house on blitz 0. And again, I cannot believe they got away with that style in 2023, but fuck it, we ball, whatever. Like, that's the whole motto for the Minnesota Vikings is, it doesn't have to make sense, it just has to be good TV. Anyway, Andrew Van Ginkel, back on topic. Really good player, super versatile, absolutely love him, and I really wish the national media would give him his flowers because he is one of the engines that makes his defense go. If you're watching Vikings games this year, keep an eye out for him. I promise you, you will be entertained. So hopefully you guys like today's show. Again, I have another one of these coming out for underrated offensive players. Make sure you also check out our podcast, the Bootleg Football Podcast. We have an hour to an hour and a half, sometimes longer than an hour and a half long episodes on every single team. We talk about draft classes and free agency and coaching trees and the works. So if you want something to keep you tied over until the start of the season, hopefully you guys go check that out. And I will see you back here really soon.